This week, we are exploring the impacts that parents have on their child's confidence. We'll get into it after I hit this music. Joining me this week is martial arts business owner, Eric Rangel-Ribeiro. Eric, thank you so much for coming on my podcast today.
I appreciate you having me as a guest, Tim. It's also
Yeah.
good to see you. It's been a while.
It has been. It's been about, 18 months maybe.
Yeah.
I just got a Facebook memory not too long ago saying that we were both in North Carolina at the Market Muscle Summit. So that was the last time I think I spoke to you and even saw you. Eric, just quickly give me a history of that history. I guess just tell me about yourself and what you do.
All right. I've been doing martial arts in various forms since the time I was 17. It was a long time ago. I've crossed that mile marker, and I'm above the age of 60. So I've got, over 30 years of experience as a student and as a instructor. And like many martial arts instructors, my first experience with martial arts was when I was in middle school and I was being bullied. I went to a small private school and our class was relatively small, a little over 100 people. And somebody decided that they were going to make fun of my last name, Ribeiro, and the fact that I was on a Husky side, and they started calling me Rib Roast. And it got to the point where like 70 people in the class were calling me that every time that
Wow.
they saw me. So I was fortunate when I experienced that bullying. I spoke to my parents and they listened to what I was telling them about my experience. And at that school, there was a judo class that was just beginning. So they said, we heard martial arts are good, so let's enroll you in that martial arts program. And it gave me confidence. But again, it took parents being receptive to the struggle that their child is facing in order to get into a program that would help.
Yeah.
Long story short, the bullying stopped. The bully is actually one of my best friends. We've been friends for, close to 50 years now. And it starts a lot of times for parents, it's challenging. Kids don't come with an owner's manual when they're born, right?
Yep.
And so you have to take the time to educate yourself about kids and how your interactions affect your child. When my kids were born, I was overwhelmed, and I like to read. I like to study. I have a psychology degree from college, and I started looking for research on approaches that I could take with my children. And one of the most important things I discovered was, you got to understand why they're behaving the way that they are behaving. The other thing that you've got to understand is, your words are powerful. And what you say to your child has an impact on how they feel about themselves. I've got it tattooed on my arm. Children are a miracle. Never underestimate the power of your words on their lives, because it's a constant reminder that we can lift children up. We can lift adults up too. Don't get me wrong, with just a simple word or changing how we approach it, right? So, parents have to think about what they say before they say it. Parents have to not react out of anger because their child is not doing what they expect that child to be doing. They've got to understand what's driving that and how can I help my child feel good or work through the situation.
Now, as an instructor myself, I've seen this, luckily not too many times in my school, thankfully, but people may see this also in football practice or baseball, whatever. You get a kid who's struggling or kind of just maybe goofing around because he's 5 years old and that's what they do. But you got the parent on the sideline, stop that right now, or they just get so mad at them. And I mean, what is that doing to that kid's confidence at that moment when the parent just yells at them from the sidelines?
It destroys it. I mean, because then again, the kid's not doing it intentionally, right? They're being a kid. They're supposed to interact that way, right? Over time, they're going to, start taking things a little bit more seriously. Like my daughter played soccer from the time she was 4. And on her teams, there were kids who wanted to play soccer and there were kids who were just getting the physical activity. And they'd be, looking at the flower as somebody kicks the ball past them, right? Because they're just trying to experience a sport and a team event for the first time, right? The parent yelling at them is going to turn that kid into somebody who says, if I'm not perfect, I'm not going to satisfy my parent, right? And it's the parent inadvertently putting pressure on their child to perform at a level that they're not capable of performing when they're 5, 6, or 7 years old, right?
So do you think it's best that parents stay and watch their kids practice, or should they just drop them off and leave?
I think it's important for parents to watch the practices for a couple of reasons. One, it's an opportunity to see your child grow and develop. It's an opportunity to interact with other parents and talk about things that are going on, either on the soccer field, in their lives, build connections. And it's also great for your kid to see you on the sideline watching them play, right? Like I said, my daughter played soccer from the time she was 4. She's, in grad school now, and she still plays in an adult league. But that time that I spent watching her from the sideline was an amazing experience for me, because I could see her transition from the kid who was just distracted to becoming a better player, to becoming a serious player through high school, going to college and getting an opportunity to play soccer in college, winning championships, being a scholar athlete, right? So I watched my kid transform before my eyes, which also affected how I interacted with them. So I'll give you an example. There were parents, they would coach from the sideline during the game, and the kid would look at dad and would say, I have to listen to the coach. Leave me alone. And some parents would take that and walk away from it, and other parents would continue to do it. So the team mom had a bag of Tootsie Pops. And when a parent was coaching from the sideline, gave that parent a Tootsie Pop.
That's smart.
Okay? Which was a beautiful thing, because she understood. Now, the other thing that was happening, is the other parents were watching the interaction between that parent and that child. I took that as a lesson to me. I didn't want to ever be that parent on the sideline and talk to my child that way. In fact, I would not. The only thing I said to my daughter after she got done with the game was, how's your game? I didn't tell her what I thought she should do, what she could have done better. I left it in her hands, right? I trusted that the program, the instructor, the head coach, the development people in that program would help her be the best that she could be.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. So what advice would you have for a parent if you see their kid goofing around in the activity? They shouldn't be doing that. Maybe they're not listening. I mean, as for myself, I tell parents, I'll take care of it. Just relax. Don't worry about it. But some coaches and activities, they don't do that. What advice do you have for parents? Like, what can they say to their child to support that child still, but still get them to listen? Or is it best just for that parent just to sit back and be quiet and let that activity happen? Because I know parents get embarrassed. I get it.
Well, yeah. And, most of the parent reaction is out of embarrassment. Okay. And this is what you as a parent, you have to have the ability not to take it personally. Your kid is not doing this to make you look like you're a bad parent, right? So, what we say to parents is, look, this is how kids at your child's age behave. It's a natural part of their behavior. It's a process in our program to take them from where they are, being a little bit distracted, to being a little bit more focused. But it's not going to happen overnight. You have to trust us and know that your child is in capable hands to get them to where they need to be. You also have to manage expectations. So I have a child who's in my 4-year-old class who has some developmental issues, and grandma brings him to class. And he's on the floor and he's doing the best that he can do on the floor. And one Saturday, she asked me before the class started, I like what's happening with the program, but I want him to be more focused than he is like right now. I want him to be like another child in the class.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking about enrolling him in private lessons. And I said, look at where he was when he started 6 months ago and where he is today. Do you see the progress that he's made? Absolutely. Okay. So trust me that in the next 6 months, he's going to transition to the place where you expect him to be. But it's your expectation, not so much what he's capable of doing, right? You have to let him be him. You have to let him develop these skills along his timeline, as opposed to think you should be this way, right? And I gave her some reading material before she left to take home so that she understands what are typical behaviors, especially when kids are neurodiverse, right?
Yeah. All right, Eric, you have any good advice for parents dealing with your child's setbacks? One of the biggest reasons when kids quit something is because it's too hard, or like in our businesses, they didn't get that stripe they wanted for, and they're just bummed out they want to quit. How should a parent handle that situation?
Well, it's a hard thing from a parent's perspective, because they want to see their child succeed, right? And they want their child to learn the habit of, we teach martial arts and we talk about perseverance, and the importance of finishing what you started. And that might be their goal. But again, part of that conversation is about, does their child really want to do the martial arts? Or is the child doing it because the parent wants them to do it, right? That's what you got to start with. And based on that, you can progress from there. So if the kid wants it, some kids, like in our program, the make or break it point is blue belt.
Yeah, same
Because
here.
at the blue belt level, you have more to remember. The techniques are more complex, and some children are going to struggle with the number of forms that they have to remember and the techniques that they need to do, right? And that is generally when they come in and they say, I want to quit because it's not fun, right? It's now actually work. And, sometimes parents come to us and they say, hey, my kid is thinking about quitting. Can you have a conversation with them? And I will have a conversation with them if they request it. And I'm like, I understand it's hard. I understand this is a difficult level, but think about this. If you really want to get something, whether it's a black belt, whether it's straight A's, whether it's a college scholarship, all of that takes hard work. So what you're learning when you push through this is you're developing the skills whenever you face a challenge to not give up and to cross the finish line, right? And, if this is not your thing, what is your thing? What do you want your parents to have you do? And maybe that's what you need to do. You need to have that conversation with a parent and get their buy-in to that. But don't quit this and do something else and then quit that when it gets hard and then start something else, and you start this pattern, right? We've had students that were 1 month away from testing for their black belt. And, they're like, I'm going to give up. And I'm like, you've got 1 month, just push through for the next month, get that black belt. And then if you're satisfied that you've checked that block, then you make that choice.
I think like for myself, I have some students that blue belt in my program is very tough. And I tell kids, you know what? The goal is 6 months to test to your next rank. It doesn't have to be your goal. I mean, some kids do it in 6, some kids do it in 9, or it takes them a year. So I try to tell those kids, like, there's no rush to get to the next rank. because I have a lot of kids who do other sports as well. They do baseball, basketball, soccer, swimming. It's their schedule is crammed. So it's hard to do those jump spin kicks, at least in my program. It's hard to learn all that stuff. It's hard to learn the forms. The forms are more complex. Stance has got to look really good, your advanced rank. And I had a girl not too long ago get upset because she didn't get one of her stripes because she was doing the block correctly, but it wasn't really correctly because it was done with the wrong hand. That was based off of which foot was placed forward. So it's called a circle block. I don't know what you guys call it. It's that block. So how that circle block works is your front hand's going to block the punch, your back hand's going to come around. It's technically an arm break. But so she had it backwards. I'm like, well, that technique doesn't work anymore because it's built for this way. And this is how it's tested. And, it's simple things, but you get to remind them, like, it's okay. There's no rush. I'm not going to force you to test. And I have a lot of kids who, in the higher ranks now, they'll just, instead of stressing out, try a test. And the parents are fine with it. They'll just slow it down a bit. Like, yeah, take her time. It's your activity. It's not mine. It's gonna be your black belt, not my black belt.
Yeah, it becomes, a conversation, and it's having the willingness to listen to what the child is telling you. This is, again, parenting.
Yeah.
What is your child trying to tell you? And listening to what they're trying to tell you is really important. Sometimes we think we know what's upsetting them. We're assuming, and we're not listening to the words. So you got to be a really good listener. And as an instructor, you've got to listen to your student who's saying to you, hey, I'm not ready to test. And you can trust in their evaluation. And then you can have that internal dialogue with yourself and like, okay, I think they're ready, but if they're not going to be if they're going to be too stressed by having to do this test, there's no problem in letting them miss a test. And then you set expectations with your parents, because inevitably the parent's going to be, how come my kid's not testing with the other child?
Yeah.
Right. So what we try to do is we try to talk to the parents in between tests about where their child is and when we think they're going to be ready for their next test. So we are setting the expectation level with the parents, and we're also doing the same with the child. Right. So it's not a surprise. The worst thing that can happen is you surprise a kid. Right. They think they're all set and they're looking forward to the test, and you're like, you're not ready.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's what causes a kid to want to quit, right? They think they know it. But again, you have to have that open conversation with them, and you have to frame that conversation with them, choose your words, because again, if you say, I don't think you're ready to test, now you can crush a student.
Yeah.
Right? If you say, you're doing really well, there are a couple of things that we need to tweak in your techniques that are going to prepare you to shine at your next test. That's a totally different conversation. That's going to cause a totally different reaction from that student.
Yep. So I do the same thing, and I ask them, you think you'll have time in the next couple of weeks to do this? And it's okay, whatever the answer is, because I tell them, I don't want to stress you out. I want to make sure when you test, you look good in front of all your friends and parents. And some kids are honest with me, yeah, can I wait till next time? I'm like, sure you can. Yeah, no problem. I want to go back to comparisons. You talked about, you had a parent say, I want my child to focus like this kid. And I think one thing, social media, television, movies, they don't do martial arts schools justice, because when you see a black belt on TV, you see a guy doing flips, cool kicks, all of this crazy stuff. And I tell people, just like you see supermodels on TV, that doesn't mean that's what they look like in real life. When you see black belts on TV, no, yes, there are gifted people. They can do all that stuff. Doesn't mean majority of the population can do that stuff. Because you remember, people who can do those type of martial arts, like crazy flips and kicks, also have a very strong gymnastics, or they have a strong dance background as well. It's not just one sport. How do you have those conversations with parents to say, I want my kid to be kicking like that kid? Or I want my kid to be able, why can't my kid hit a home run? The other kids in this class can hit home runs. Why can't my kid do it? Like, they're trying to throw it back onto you as the instructor.
Yeah. Well, again, it's expectation setting, right? With the parents, it's understanding what their kid is capable of doing physically at their age or at their current skill level, right? So, like you said, not everybody can do a jump 360 back kick perfectly, right? It
Yes.
takes time to develop that skill. So, why can't my kid do that today? We are working through this progression. Here's what he's doing well along the lines of learning that technique. Give it time, give it patience, and you will start to see his technique getting better if you trust the program, right? Your kid is your kid. He has different abilities than somebody else. We don't compare one student against the other. We look at each individual that comes onto the mats in our classes and understand what they're going to excel at, what they need help with, and what is they are going to struggle with severely. And then we try to help build up the opportunities. I don't call them weaknesses, opportunities, and
Yep.
turn them into strengths. But it takes time. And again, it takes time to understand, like you said, not everybody can be that guy doing the Karate Kid moves, right? I know myself, my physical abilities have changed over the years of training. So as long as I do the best that I can do with my abilities, my physical abilities, that's what counts. We don't expect that every student that comes through the doors is going to emerge from the program as a clone of every other student that's been through the program. They have different desires, right? Do they want to be a top-level martial artist? No. Do they? Okay, you want to be a high-level performing martial artist? This is what it's going to take to get there, and we will work with you to get you to that point. But if you don't want that for yourself, I can't make it happen. I'm not going to make you go through that type of intense training because it's not what you want. I'll go back to a soccer example. High school years, a lot of the girls on my daughter's travel team were talking about they want to go and they want to play in college. So, like, sophomore year, there were probably 10 girls who wanted to play in college. By the time they got to senior year, there were 3.
Wow.
Okay? Of those 3, my daughter played her full 4 years. The other 2, the first one didn't make it through the first year. The second one made it to the second year. Because to play at that level, you have to think about it. You're going to training before class. You're going to classes. If you're not getting grades, you got to go to tutoring. You've got training in the afternoon. You got lifting. Okay? It's a lot of work. It's work. It's not like you show up you go to practices 3 times a week and you show up for the game on Sunday. No, you are training every day. You're scrimmaging. So, again, if your kid wants to do it, you give them the tools to be able to pursue that. But if they don't want to do it, don't put the pressure on them. Right?
Yeah, I love it. Eric, I want to wrap this up with one more question for you. What strategies can parents use to build long-term sustainable confidence for kids?
No, I'm gonna revert to a couple of things that one of my favorite authors, Dan Siegel, said. It's important for kids to feel safe. It's important for them to be seen. It's important for them to feel soothed and secure in who they are as an individual. I would add, they need to have loving interactions with their parents, and they need to have predictable environments. So if one time they come to talk to you about something and you snap at them, and the next time they come to talk to you about something and you don't snap at them, there's that inconsistency. So as parents, we have to be across the board predictable, react the same way. Because if you react the same way, you are encouraging your child to come and talk to you about any problem that is going on in their life. If when they come to you with a problem and you say to them, I'm busy, I'll get back to you, or that's not a big deal, you blow it off, then they're going to be less likely to want to have that conversation with you, right? I mean, parents are lucky today because there are so many resources available to help parents who might be struggling with understanding what their kid is going through or the best approach to take in building confident kids.
Yeah.
There's Arabella Hill, who posts content 2 to 3 times a day about how you should look at your child and how you should adjust your expectations based on what children are capable of doing. Dr. Becky is another wonderful person who posts content and has a website that has information that's a resource for parents who are struggling. All you have to go there and say, I'm struggling with this. And you got a list of resources that
Yes.
they can utilize. For us, we do a lot of interactions with parents. We tell them if there's something that you're struggling and it's something that I know about based on my background, I will say, here's some things that you can try at home, or here are some resources that you can use to help you be the best parent that you can be.
I love it, Eric. You gave us a lot of great tips and advice, and you are right about one thing. Our hands have so much information in front of us. Well, I shouldn't say that. Our hands hold so much information that can be in front of us. Like if you struggle with anything, you have ADHD issues, you can even find like a local support group that you didn't even know about in your area to go join parents to help your kid with how do I handle my kid with ADHD. We have so much resources at our fingertips today. It's crazy. And I think that one thing I like about martial arts is that we have, us as instructors, our martial arts is not like a program where you have to do this because we have a game this weekend. It's like you go at your own pace, slow it down. We get the time to learn and know the kids versus other sports. I'm sounding kind of biased right now, but it's what
No,
it's what
no,
we do for a living. If you're a baseball coach, maybe you do the same thing we do. I just don't
yeah.
know about it. That's all.
Well, I mean, it's like, I'm still close with the club that my daughter played soccer for. And, I'll talk to them about, her experience as a player going through their program. And I'll say, these are the types of things that were said to her that had an impact on her. So you need to think about this as you're coaching and developing other players, right? So I say, I take it as a personal responsibility to share my knowledge with not just coaches, but, I'm in child daycare centers. I teach programs there. And, sometimes the teachers are watching and they're like, wow, that's amazing to watch how you captured their attention. And all these kids who are usually squirrely are all sitting there enthralled. And how did you do that? So I'll tell them, here's some things that you can try. The other thing is you have kids, I have kids. Mine are, older, soon to be 30 and 27, become a better parent to my kids than when they were young because of what I do and what I've learned over the years, right? And my message to parents is you may not have a great relationship with your child today, but you have the ability to change that. You have the ability to have that close relationship where your child, when they're older, looks forward to coming home and spending time with you, right? That is a great gift when your kids want to hang out with you and spend time with you, right? And it's within our control.
Perfect. I think we're going to end that there. Eric, if people want to get a hold of you or follow you, how can they do that?
Okay, they can, our website is resilientmartialarts.com. If you live in Richmond area, our school is Resilient Martial Arts. We're in Midlothian. You can find us Resilient Martial Arts on Facebook and on Instagram. And then those are the key ways.
All right, perfect. And if you're listening, his website will be in the show notes. If you're watching on YouTube, you just saw it go across your screen. Eric, thank you so much for coming on today.
Tim, I appreciate you having me on. I enjoyed this conversation. It was great. Hopefully we've shared some information with parents that will help them.
Yes, I think we did. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Tim.
And for myself, you can always find us at our very own website, which is www.breakbullyinghere.com. You can also reach out to us at our email address. If you have a story of your own bullying to share, or for whatever reason, you want to get a hold of us, our email address is breakbullyinghere@gmail.com. Now, if you're a victim of bullying and you don't know where to turn, there is online resources to help you. The first is the government's very own anti-bullying website, and the address is www.stopbullying.gov. And other online resource is www.pacer.org/bullying. Now, if you have had thoughts of suicide or of self-harm, we implore you to stop. Reach out to the National Suicide Hotline. That number is very simple. It's 988. I'm Tim Flynn, and thank you for listening, and we will be back to continue the conversation to break the silence on bullying.